Remember, this is mid 2016. So security really questioned Amazon Alexa, not the ceiling fan.
This is episode number 4 with Bond, not James Bond. Bond Smart Home. Control your ceiling fan with voice. And don't bring Amazon Alexa through security.
Welcome to the 1 Hour Smart Home Podcast,
helping you make your life better
using automation and technology. With your host, James Both.
Hello and welcome. This is your host, James Both, with the 1HourSmartHome.com, bringing you everything you need to know to automate your home, your life, as well as smart home product reviews, the latest smart home industry news, and exclusive interviews with smart home industry experts and smart home company founders. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for being here. We are happy to have one of the guests that I am very impressed with their product and use personally in my home, Zohar Shinar. He is the CEO and founder of Bond Home. Zohar, how are you?
I'm great. Sitting here in China, in Shenzhen, and chatting with you.
Well, thank you for calling into us all the way from China. Appreciate it very much. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do? So you're currently the CEO of Olibra, but what's your background? How did you get into this?
So I'm an electrical engineer, and I spent a few years in RF and microwave design, and mainly for electronic warfare application. And I bumped into something that I perceived as a need in the home automation industry, realizing that a lot of remote controls, especially in the US market, are RF remote, radio frequency remote, and figured that required a solution, a technical solution. And that's how pretty much Olibra started.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize you were in electronic warfare before you got into the smart home space.
I kind of brought electronic warfare in, just in a different scale, but yeah, basically the RF, the knowledge in RF engineering. That's kind of like how I got into this.
So let me ask you, with electronic warfare having been what you were doing prior, is that why you chose the name Bond? Are you a fan of James Bond?
So I thought about that, and I think the name Bond chose us because really how it really rolled out is that we had a great industrial designer who designed the look of our product. Her name is Inbal, and she also took the liberty of offering names because we did not have a name. And one of them was Bond, and it just makes sense because we are connecting and bonding appliances, legacy appliances that do not have Wi-Fi connectivity to the smart home, which is usually eventually connects to a Wi-Fi backbone in your home. So we said, yeah, it makes sense. We wanted a little bit more unique name to help with searches in Google, but Bond was chosen before we did. So now we're competing for the same name.
So could you tell, I obviously have this product in my home, love it. I use it to control my smart fan. Can you tell me what the product does and just kind of explain it to our listeners, kind of all the applications you have, and then what you're looking to do in the future with this?
Yeah. So the way the Bond works is by replicating the signals that a remote control generates. So, for example, we started our MVP, our minimum viable products, was focused on ceiling fan. And ceiling fans have, I think, 95% of the ceiling fans we've seen, or even more, are using RF remote controls. And what the Bond does, the Bond listens to the RF signal that the remote control generates. And if that remote was recorded previously by another user or already configured in our database, with the Bond app, we are populating all the functionality in the Bond app for the user. And when the user click on a button on the remote or provide a control, the Bond will generate the same signal, the same type of signal that the remote generates. So the ceiling fan, the device, the home appliance doesn't really care if the signal comes from the Bond or from your remote control and acts accordingly. So the beauty about that is that it's not like some other solutions in the market today, like an on-off functionality. It gives you all the functionality you have with your device. So in the example of a ceiling fan, some remotes are just on-off 1, 2, 3 speeds and light. Some of them have light dimming and reverse function, and all of those capabilities or functionalities are available because for the bond, it's just sending the right command in the right medium, the right RF frequency to your ceiling fan, and the ceiling fan will respond.
So, one thing that I really like about your product in particular is yes, I can control it with my phone, but I am a huge fan of voice control. And your product works with Amazon Alexa, is that correct?
Yes, it does, and also Google Home.
Yeah, so that is, I think, probably one of my favorite features just about any device is being able to use your voice to control your home, because I believe that that is the best user interface, right? Grandma understands how to turn on and off a light switch or on and off a fan with voice, and she doesn't have to have any technical capability. So when you were designing the Bond home, did you always have voice-centric design in mind? Or how did you come about connecting it to Amazon Alexa and Google? Why did you do that?
So it's a great question because when we started Amazon, Amazon Echo, Alexa, and definitely in the middle of 2016, even less so with Google Home, there were less partners and less skills, the equivalent of an application developed by third parties. But somewhere early in the development process, we were just focusing on providing a technical solution, a device that can record many different RF frequencies. Basically, we do not know how your remote operates, and we're not brand specific. So that was the technical challenge. Any type of remote control for the ceiling fans, not knowing which type of remote it is to be able to record it and replay the signal. As we were doing that, we started to think about, okay, how the user experience will look like. And yeah, you can push some buttons on the app, and that's great, and you can do it outside of your home. But really, when Amazon Echo took off, it was like a light bulb. We realized that, yeah, so you can just use voice, and it changes completely the way now that you're going to be interacting with your appliance. And it's kind of, to us, it looked like magical because it's not only that it's a smart device. This ceiling fan that you are now controlling with your bond could be 15 years old, and you're controlling it with voice. So with that's kind of like the point of time when we realized that that's really the use case to control these appliances.
So you just mentioned something that I think is really important for our listeners to hear. Fans can be 15 years old as long as they have infrared or RF control. Your device will work with that. So if you've got a remote control, your device can retrofit to that. And now you've got voice control of your fan. So it's a very easy upgrade to be able to control your voice with fan. And that is what I believe is one of the things that makes smart home automation so accessible. You guys have designed a product that you don't have to go do a whole bunch of wiring or anything like that. You plug this thing in, and if you have an RF remote control fan, you can make it work. Is that how it works?
That's definitely how it works. And, we got a lot of feedback from a lot of users reviewing our product and talking about the product. And one of the things that one of our users said that, it was, I was happy to read that and realize that we did something good. Although he basically said, I use my ceiling fan and I forgot that I have a bond because he uses Alexa. And but, it means that we've delivered the ultimate user experience, that we're not creating any more work or any more hassle for the user to use the end product, because we are bridging between the smart home and the older appliances, the legacy appliances with remote controls. And another thing that we've done to do that, originally when we were thinking about Alexa and Alexa integration in Google Home, we designed our own skill, our own action. But as we start testing and working with beta testers, we realized that they have to say, Alexa, tell Bond Home to do something, and that's not natural. You just want to say her name and turn on the ceiling fan. So we decided not to go to production with our custom skill and instead be part of Alexa smart home skill. And by being part of that, the smart home skill, it's a virtual integration that you do not need to mention the name of the device. So you can just talk to your appliances. The device, I mean the bond.
Yeah, when I set this thing up, I mean, it was seamless. It took me a couple minutes, and I was up online, and like you said, it was like magic. It was amazing how easy it is, and I test all different types of smart home equipment. So out of the thousands of products I test, there are some duds, and you spend 30 minutes on an app, and you still don't get it connected, and it's very frustrating. I didn't have that experience with your product at all, and it is so refreshing when things just work. And like you said, somebody forgetting that they even have a bond, that's almost what you want for the user experience because it just works. You don't even realize it. So you started off with ceiling fans. I'm excited about a couple of the other items that you are going to bring control to in the future, mainly because I know how good the user interface is for what you guys are doing, and I'd like to see that same UI and just same level of quality and control of some of these other devices. Can you go through some of the other devices you guys are planning to connect in the future?
Yes. So our product development roadmap is based on the I would say assumption that we will go a product category by product category, perfecting the experience for the user. And the reason I'm saying it is because the hardware that our users and our customers are buying right now can already control many more appliances, such as shades. But the software is not supporting that yet. So there's no need to replace the hardware. It's going to be a remote software update. For example, appliances or devices that the bond will be able to control is motorized shades, garage doors, and ACs and TVs. Now, there's one thing I would like to say about ACs and TVs. Those are usually, by I would say, overwhelming majority of them are IR controlled, infrared controlled. That means that the bond has to be in line of sight of the device. And if you have multiple AC units, you're going to have to, in different rooms, you might have to purchase multiple bonds. So we're really focusing in the near future on devices that are RF controlled for two reasons. One, the use case is better because one bond can be centrally located in the home and does not have to be at the same room as the device. Therefore, it can control multiple shades and multiple ceiling fans from a single location. And the other reason is that we're pretty much the only device that can do that. IR blasters, there's many of them. So we want to really focus on what makes us unique and that we can do to solve an existing problem in the market.
Well, I can tell you I am personally very excited about your motorized shade control as well as the garage door control. There are options out there already that control these things. But in testing those options, there's two parts to it. One is there's proprietary systems that are very expensive for the motorized shades. Everybody wants them, but they're just inaccessible because we're talking about shades to outfit a house. You're anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. And with the control system that you guys are making, it allows people to bring in third-party manufacturers or manufacturers that have RF control, but they don't have an app database kind of already created. So I think that's great because it's going to make the cost of motorizing those shades a lot cheaper, and it's going to open up the field of players compared to there's a couple people that have a dominant foothold. And now the same thing is true for garage doors. I've tested a lot of these garage doors. I've been locked inside of garages testing all this stuff because the remote control didn't work. I think that's going to be a very interesting development for you guys, and wish you luck on that. When you started Olibra, how did you finance it? How did you go about getting this thing started?
So that's a very good question, and it's something that we are constantly dealing with as a startup, because as a hardware startup, raising money is something that's constantly looming out there, especially when you grow and your working capital needs are growing as well. We decided to work within a network of private investors, and that made the original investment much faster and productive. It saved us a lot of time, basically shopping around and selling our company, and allow us to focus on developing the product.
Now, in terms of the finance, so you went with the private side. Do you guys go through a seed round and then a subsequent Series A or B, or are the cash flows from what you're producing now kind of sustaining the company?
We're basically very close to that point where the company is self-sufficient. But really what determines that is our strategy for the future and the new products that we're working on. And they might have a capital requirement that will require us to go out and raise more money. So that's basically, we raised seed, and that took us to where we are today.
And if you are looking to be an entrepreneur in the smart home space, is there a piece of advice that you would give somebody starting up a smart home company? Obviously, you had a very good technical background in electrical engineering and electronic warfare, but what kind of piece of advice would you give somebody trying to get into the smart home space?
Well, it's one thing about advice. It's very subjective because everybody have different experiences, and also timing plays a major role, and different skill set. But I can tell you what we were still focusing on, and I don't think it applies only to smart home, but just for a startup company, regardless of what we're doing and how successful we are, we just stay lean, and in every aspect. In the way we develop the product, in our expenses, in our operations, in our marketing, just trying to stay very, very lean to be able to get as much, I would say, oxygen and time in the market to learn and respond and potentially be successful and reap the benefit of that.
That's very interesting that you say that, because some of the entrepreneurs I talk to, I've asked them the question, what is the worst day that you've had in the time frame of starting this company? And typically the response is, a day that the product had issues and the network went down or something like that. But one of the biggest responses that I get is when I had to fire people or when I had to downsize. So, a lot of companies end up scaling up and they become a little bit bloated. They're not as lean, and then they end up downsizing. And that emotionally, I think, affects a lot of entrepreneurs because not everybody has fired 20 or 30 people all at once. So it's very interesting that you say the stay lean thing. I think that is a great piece of advice for any founder, regardless of smart home technology, to take away. And definitely something that I hear echoed among the smart home founders and entrepreneurs that I talk with. As far as smart home, obviously you developed a product around the smart home. What is your favorite smart home device, or what are some of the smart home devices that you have in your house?
So I have a good mix because of the nature of our product. We're aiming at the consumer market, and we're not like a full home automation solution. We're a component for the home automation and the smart home. So I have Wemo, I have Philips Hue, I have Honeywell thermostat, Nest, and of course I have an Alexa and Google Home that we're constantly talking to now. And I have young kids at home, so it's very funny to hear them talking to them. I can tell you that both of them fail in voice recognition of a baby trying to talk. So they're not as intelligent just yet. I can understand what she's saying. They don't. So there's still a long way in voice recognition.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. We've been following the voice space for a long time, and we've covered some of those topics, but where do you think the future of the voice space is going? Kind of what are your projections? Is this market going to continue to grow?
Yeah, definitely. I think that voice tipped the scale for home automation. Voice in general, it's just it's going to change a lot of things. But in the context of smart home and home automation, I think everybody talked about the home automation revolution about 4 or 5 years ago. There were a lot of startups, and a lot of money went into those startups, whether they were hardware or software. And I think that everybody waited for the home automation to really take on shape in a big way and to be visible in the mass market, and it did not happen. But I think now that voice came along, that changes everything, because you have two of the big four. You have Amazon and Google Home, who are pouring resources and money to make sure that as many homes all over the world will have voice control. And once you have voice control, you can do a lot of things. And suddenly home automation becomes much more attractive, and the use case for home automation becomes more attractive, more usable, and also very affordable. If you think about 10 years ago, I'm not even talking about voice control, which was basically non-existent in that context. But if you wanted to automate your home in different ways, lighting and maybe a door, and central control, not even voice, how much it will cost you versus how much it's going to cost you today. And part of that, it's not only voice, it's the fact that those two players are going after this market in a big way.
So I completely agree with you, and I think the explosion of smart home with voice has been incredible. I've been to some of the Amazon Alexa developer seminars to see the kind of people there, and what's being created every day is truly amazing. And it's going to be interesting this next 10 years to see the transformation. Because like you said, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it was getting hyped up, but nobody kind of was able to put the pieces together. And it's like right now we're in a time frame where all the pieces are coming together, like with your product being able to start connecting fans that are legacy products, and now you've got the integration with voice, which makes everything much easier. So I want to talk a little bit right now. You're calling me from China. Thank you for being on the line. What are you doing in China right now?
I'm visiting our suppliers in China, meeting them face to face, going into the factory, looking at how our product is being manufactured, monitoring quality, discussing forecasts with them. They are our suppliers, but we also work with them as partners, and sharing them information about our needs and our business and our plans, I think will help us with our supply chain going forward.
And so how did you meet these partners, or how did you source them? And can you just kind of walk us through your product development process? You created a prototype, and then what happened?
So I have experience in working in China prior to starting Olibra. That's not the first business I started. So I have relationships in China prior to starting this business. And so we got to our suppliers in China relatively early in the game. So before I just talk about the product development cycle from an engineering and marketing and customer service perspective, from a supplier or supply chain perspective, we did not really have to go through the phase of manufacturing the product, for example, in the US, and then slowly migrating it. Our first pre-production lot of 100 pieces came out of a production facility in China. So we were able to skip that phase and go to market a little bit faster from that perspective, from a supply chain perspective. From a product development perspective, what we're trying to do is kind of like in line what I say about being lean, is also being lean in our kind of expectations and the features that we're developing. So even when we're looking at feature for customers, we're thinking big, what this feature means in a big way to our product and integration with other products, but then breaking it down to sub features and really focusing in making progress on smaller tasks. But always what we're doing is in the context of the consumer story, the user story, how it affects the user. Even when we're developing internal tools to improve our internal development, which consumer doesn't really even see, that's being done in the context of how's that, for example, will help us processing a customer service ticket. So at the end of the day, it's about the user. And then we take that through our engineering development process. We make sure that, of course, product is initiating the process, and customer service is connected all along from the planning phase until the pre-release. We're making sure customer service is there because we're talking to consumers on a daily basis. We have customer service from the day we launched. Customer service is available from 9 a.m. to 12 midnight Eastern, 7 days a week. During the weekend, we realize that our customers, users, will be installing those devices usually at the evening time, not when they're at work. They have to go back home and then unpack the device and set it up. So we're there to assist them, and being able to be up to date about what's going on with the product and what's being developed is very important. So customer service is really part of the development process as well. Then we have a very enthusiastic group of beta testers that we can launch new features for them, and they give us a true feedback. Sometimes, we don't really realize that what we've done is not exactly what users want, but that allows us to gate that before we're going to production.
You mentioned something about customer service that I think is a really interesting insight, and I wish more companies did this. You said most people are going to come home and they're going to put the device on after work. So that's the reason that you have extended customer service hours. I cannot tell you how many different devices that I have tried to troubleshoot, and you call the hotline and it's 6 or 7 p.m. and it's just a recording. Call us back tomorrow at 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. between 9 and 4. And that is one of the most frustrating things as a customer. You've gotten this new device. There may not be a ton of technical documentation on it on the internet because it's newer, and you're trying to reach somebody and you can't reach them. So I think from a customer service perspective, that is an amazing insight and something that is really important, and I wish more companies would do, because people are coming home after work. They've had a long day. They don't want to mess with something that doesn't work, and being able to connect with somebody on the phone to get answers to a problem and a solution, I think is huge, and really going to make people raving fans of any product where you do something like that.
Yeah, we have chat and emails built into our app. So, somebody can always send us an email via email, but the idea is that they can chat with somebody live inside the app. They don't have to leave the app and get customer support. And I can tell you that from my personal experience, when we first launched, everybody are involved in customer service. And by the way, talking about the product development and our team, everybody, customer service is being done by customer service professionals that we're constantly training internally, but we're making sure that engineers and myself, we are all spending a few hours a month doing customer service. At the beginning, it was much more than that, but now we're a little bit more structured. But the idea is that the engineers never detach themselves from customers. When you talk to customers, it's different when customer service comes to you and say, hey, I have a customer that has this problem. When you talk to a person and he tells you about his problem and you go through trying to solve the problem, as an engineer, you realize, one, the extent of the issue. Two, what is a customer service agent on our end will need in order to solve this problem in the future if it's not solved for the next customer. So that has to do with developing tools and making sure that we can provide support for our customers, because all that knowledge comes from engineering. So we're very strongly coupled into customer service.
Well, any time that you can talk about engineering, let me just tell you, it warms my heart. I am also an engineer by background. And I think what you just said is something I also wish I would see with some of the other products we work with, because there are a lot of beautifully designed products. And that product goes out to market, it works, somebody sells 1 million of them. And then what ends up happening is, I've seen it before where the engineering isn't quite right of the product, and the next iteration doesn't take care of the engineering issues that are there. So having a mix of not only your customer service people, but the engineers to actually solve problems and make things better, I think that iterative engineering process is a beautiful thing that you can't go wrong with in the future, and is something I wish more people implemented, because I know there are products out there right now that they just have customer service folks answering the phone, and they're getting 100,000 calls about a particular product, but they're not solving the problem because the engineering team is on and off to another product, rather than making sure that the iterations are perfect and getting better every time. So I think that is a beautiful process, as well as just, I love the engineers staying involved, because when you see companies bringing solutions to market that are truly world-class, it's about a combination of what you've designed and listening to your customers' feedback. And that's really, really important. So you are in China right now. You're partnering with your suppliers, which I think is an amazing thing. You had relationships there. Do you speak Chinese, or do most of the people that you're working with speak English, or do you have an interpreter when you go there?
Excellent question. We did not dare starting this operation in China without an employee of Olibra in China that speaks Chinese. We have Jacob, who speaks Chinese and English, and is also involved in engineering. But we have our men on the ground. So when something goes on in the production line, somebody who can reprogram our programming fixture is there. I think that's mandatory if you want to have smooth operation in China. Not because your suppliers are not good enough. It's just because you need somebody from your organization and able to solve quick problems quickly. Still 12 hours difference and 15.5 hours flight from New York to Hong Kong. So somebody there is a big deal for us.
No, that's interesting. A lot of companies do it a lot of different ways, and I think that's really interesting that you have an actual employee, a representative of yours on the ground to help troubleshoot and problem solve in real time. Not everybody does that, but I think ultimately that probably saves you a lot of time and miscommunication, yes. I would imagine.
Definitely.
What has been the most challenging day at Bond?
Good question. I think that the most challenging day for us was, I don't know if it was a day that we had to reckon with something specific that happened, but it was the decision that we had to make about how we launch. We were getting to a point where we knew we have to get the product out there, to put it in people's hands, because we were inside an echo chamber making a lot of decisions and assumptions and about features that are needed and not needed. And we had to make a decision. So this product is all about the promise of being able to connect everything that has a remote control and make everything smart. But then eventually we went to market with ceiling fans, which is just one type of device. And we grappled with this decision a long time on the marketing side and the product side, how people will receive it, and is anybody going to buy it because of that, because there's this promise of more devices to be controlled. And eventually we made the decision to go with a single product and add to it later. So since then, we already added support for fireplaces, and motorized shades will come right after that. And I think that was a good decision, because we've seen that even with a single device, we had a lot of improvements to make. And had we waited or went out to market with more devices, I think it would have been a grave mistake, because we would have not been successful.
So you mentioned a little bit about product launch and marketing of the product. I've seen your devices on Amazon, Home Depot, and several other retailers. How did you get those retailer relationships? I assume that Walmart.com and Home Depot weren't buying electronic warfare drones. So how did you create those relationships with those suppliers?
So it was a shocking experience, for our team. So when we started and we built a little demo, we were about pretty much a two-man operation. And believe it or not, I did not believe it, but we were able to demo the product inside Home Depot and Lowe's without any previous experience, relationship, contacts with these guys. They have people, very experienced, professional, and talented people that we now enjoy immensely working with, that are listening and looking for new products. And you would think that, a giant like Home Depot is just stocking shelves. And it's completely not the case. They have noticed the home automation. They're going after this market. They realize that home automation is built on, the giants like Google and Amazon, but a lot of third-party partners of those companies that integrate with those products, and they need to give them a stage and they need to listen to them. So the first demos we went there, we basically we did not even had an incorporated company. We just went there to show them a concept, and we traveled with a ceiling fan in a suitcase, and they gave us a conference room. And even I can tell you that in the first Home Depot demo, we did not come with our own Wi-Fi router, and they have a fire. They have a firewall on the Wi-Fi connection, so we were not able to demo. So they accepted us again, which I think is amazing. And just so I encourage anybody just to knock on their door. It opens up.
Wait, so let me get this straight. You traveled around the country with a ceiling fan in your suitcase?
I did travel around the country with a ceiling fan in the suitcase. Yes, and yeah, and the funny thing is that in security, going on a fridge just to make sure it's not kind of some kind of a weapon. And that Alexa gave me more trouble than a demo board full of wires coming out of it and a ceiling fan in a suitcase.
That is amazing. Just the visual of you going through security with a ceiling fan in your suitcase, and they're worried
Yes.
about the Amazon Alexa.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
assume, hooking it up at Home Depot or wherever you were trying to demo this product. So that is commitment. That is heart there. So it sounds like you are not willing, or you are willing to get your hands dirty and do the work to make it happen, if that means carrying a ceiling fan across the country to sell your product. I think that's very interesting as a founder. Some people step away from that, but I appreciate the fact that shows commitment. And I think that really just kind of personifies what you guys are about, doing it right and making it happen for your customers and user experience. But that is a good one. I'm glad that we touched base on that. That is a true gem that I'm sure our listeners will love. So where is your product available? I've seen it on Amazon.com. I've seen it on Home Depot. Can you give us a short list of some of the other retailers you work with?
Yes. Well, we're just so again taking this lean approach. We decided to launch with two partners so we can focus on them. So we decided instead of going shallow and wide with a lot of partners, just go deep with two and see what happens. So we focused on Amazon and Home Depot, and now that was successful, we are now expanding. And in 2 weeks, the product is going to be selling in Lowe's. And we started selling on Walmart.com about 5 weeks ago. And there is a piece coming up on HSN of the bond, and there's two other major retailers who are evaluating the product as we speak, and that will give us pretty good coverage.
So can listeners also get your product on your website? And what is that website?
The website is bondhome.io, and they can get it on our website, definitely.
All right. Well, how do you guys, when you've got a big success, how do you celebrate that success? Do you watch episodes of James Bond, a movie marathon, or how do you celebrate and reward the employees and the team when you've got a big success like a launch of your product?
That's a good question. Before I answer it, I just want to say something about our team. That we have a very strong and talented group of people that works very well together, both in engineering and marketing, customer service. We have true professionals that are working in any one of those groups that allowing us to do what we're doing right now. So I'm very proud of the talent that we were able to bring into the company. Everybody has a sense of ownership and just doing great work. And as far as celebration, we're trying to be very diverse. But at the end of the day, most of the company is a group of engineers. So I don't know how exciting it's going to sound, but I can tell you that we went bowling once.
Zohar, I will tell you that's great. That is classic. I was always told in college the party doesn't start till the engineers get there. Is that true?
I don't think that that's accurate, but yeah.
That's great. We've got one more question for you here, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. What device or product under $200 has had the biggest impact in your life?
When we got an espresso machine into our office.
There you go. You got to keep those engineers working. Zohar, it has been truly a pleasure speaking with you. everyone can go to bondhome.io to see what Olabra and Zohar are doing with home automation. Amazing product. I've got this in my home. It's a 12-hour time difference here. So right now it's 10 a.m. for me. It's 10 for Zohar in China. Beating the boots, the pavements in China, making it happen. Thank you for being here all the way across the world. Do you have anything you want to leave our listeners with?
No, just thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good one, Zohar. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to episode number 4 with Zohar Shinar from bondhome.io. bondhome.io. And we are happy to bring you value each time you tune in. If you've got questions you want us to cover on smart home automation, go ahead and email us at info@onehoursmarthome.com. We always look forward to hearing from our listeners and providing topics that you want to hear about. Now, if you could do me one more favor, go ahead and give us that 5-star rating in the App Store, or give us a thumbs up and like, and share the 1 Hour Smart Home podcast with your friends. This episode was brought to you by the 1hoursmarthome.com. And if you want to support us, you can either buy our products, our smart home devices that we manufacture and design on our website, or you can go to Amazon and search 1 Hour Smart Home for products that we sell there.
Thank you for listening to the 1 Hour Smart Home Podcast. We love our listeners and your feedback. Subscribe to our email list at onehoursmarthome.com, where we share with you the best smart home technology, the latest reviews, tips, and tricks to make your life better. And with that, we'll catch you in the future.